Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are going on a seriously fascinating journey, tracing the grand arc of human expression. I mean, think about it. How do we go from a baby's very first, kind of unstructured babbles, all the way to the breathtaking heights of Asian and Philippine literature? How do the tiny, microscopic workings of our brains eventually build the macro-level epics of our cultures? Well, today, we're going to unpack exactly how language evolves, how our brains decode it, and how societies use it to build absolute masterpieces. Let's dive in. So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at early language development. Second, we'll break down the mechanics of reading. Third, we'll zoom out to Asian literary traditions. And finally, we'll bring the whole shebang together by exploring Philippine literature and language. Phase 1. Early language development. I want you to just take a second and imagine the incredibly active, rapidly developing brain of a toddler. That toddler's brain is literally a sponge, and bilingualism actually takes root in it through two distinct pathways. First up, we have simultaneous bilingualism. This is when a child acquires two languages at the exact same time before the age of 3. Now, at first, they might mix words up, which is totally normal, but by age 4, their brain brilliantly separates them out. Then there is sequential bilingualism. This also happens before age 3, but here, the child uses the knowledge and experience of their first language as a sort of springboard to acquire the second one. Both pathways are just absolutely amazing feats of cognitive development. Now, while this development is totally natural, there are some key developmental red flags we definitely need to keep an eye out for. If a child isn't making sounds between 2 to 6 months, has fewer than 20 words combined across both languages by 20 months, or just isn't putting words together by age 2 or 3, well, these are indicators that the child might be experiencing a delay. Catching this early is absolutely crucial, and it requires looking at the child's entire language system, not just their primary tongue. Okay, pop quiz time. Let's test this out with a quick scenario. Grace speaks fluent English and Filipino. When studying Spanish, she actively uses similarities from Filipino to learn the new language faster. So think about it for a second. What kind of transfer is this? If you guessed specific transfer, you hit the nail on the head. Grace is taking specific linguistic rules and vocabulary from a language she already knows and applying them directly to shortcut her way into a new one. It's a highly efficient little hack the brain uses. And this brilliantly illustrates the theory of Lev Vygotsky, a foundational Russian psychologist. He basically pointed out that children learn through socially meaningful interactions. Language is both highly social and a massive facilitator of learning. We don't just learn language in a vacuum, right? We don't sit in an empty room and magically absorb words. We learn through vibrant social scaffolding. Language requires interaction, feedback, connection. Our environment and the people in it quite literally construct the architecture of our minds. Phase 2. The mechanics of reading. So we've mastered spoken sounds through social interaction, but how does the brain actually process the written word? There are basically two primary ways our brains tackle text, and they operate in completely opposite directions. First, there is bottom-up reading, which is entirely data-driven. Imagine a teacher, Ms. Padilla, using flashcards to help first graders sound out individual syllables, which then build into words, which build into sentences. You start at the very bottom with the raw data, the letters. Then, on the flip side, there is top-down reading. This is concept-driven. This is when you, the reader, rely on your prior knowledge and background experiences to make educated guesses and grasp the big picture of the text without having to meticulously decode every single individual letter. Now let me ask you, how is your brain processing the information I'm giving you right now? Are you just absorbing the words, or are you actively thinking about the concepts we're discussing? If you're doing the latter, you are engaging in metacognition. This is a remarkably powerful reading skill. It's the high-level cognitive ability to actively control and analyze your own thought processes. It is, quite literally, thinking about thinking. And to actually master metacognition, we look to McNeil's 3 processes. Step 1. Know your own strengths and weaknesses as a reader. Step 2. Choose the right strategy for the situation. Like, if you are reading a dense scientific manual, you might need to slow way down. Use that bottom-up approach. But if you're reading a breezy novel, you might skim, relying on top-down strategies. And step 3, monitor your own understanding. We've all had that moment where you realize you've read an entire page but have zero idea what it said, right? So you actively decide to stop and go back. That is metacognition in action. Phase 3, Asian literary traditions. Okay, so we've looked at the micro, how the individual brain develops language and reads. Now let's zoom way out to the macro level. How do entire civilizations express their deepest values?
History constantly shows us how shifting political landscapes directly dictate a culture's literature. Just look at Japan's evolution. During the Heian Age, it was an era of profound peace, and the royal court had very few official duties. So what happens? Art and literature absolutely flourish, giving us the exquisite diary genre. But then, the landscape shifted to the feudal era. The samurai class rose to power, and the literature naturally pivoted to reflect bravery, loyalty, and the brutal reality of war. Finally, the Tokugawa shogunate ushered in a completely closed society for 2 whole centuries, fiercely internalizing and protecting Japanese culture.
Yet, through all these turbulent eras, poetry remained this integral, beautiful part of daily communication in Japan. Just listen to the precision of this classic haiku by Sokan. If to the moon one puts a handle, what a splendid fan. Notice that rhythm. It uses a super strict 5-7-5 syllable structure. In just 3 short lines, the poet captures a fleeting moment in nature, heavily influenced by the mindfulness of Zen Buddhism and the reverence for nature you find in Shintoism.
Moving over to China, we find the absolute literary titans of the Tang Dynasty. Their distinct philosophies deeply shaped their poetry. You've got Li Po, a Taoist romantic, ecstatic, totally otherworldly. Contrast him with Tu Fu, a Confucian realist who chronicled the really harsh realities and disasters of his age. Then there's Wang Wei, whose Buddhist beliefs inspired these highly economical, pictorial word pictures. And Po Chuai, who bravely used his realism to speak out bitterly against the social problems plaguing China. 4 totally different minds, 4 completely different ways of wielding language.
Phase 4, Philippine Literature and Language. Let's bring this explainer home to the archipelago. We are going to shift our focus to the incredibly rich traditions of local storytelling.
Consider the number 7 for a moment. Just like the Japanese have the 5-7-5 haiku, early Filipinos developed their own highly structured poetry called the tanaga. A traditional tanaga contains exactly 7 syllables per line. But unlike the haiku, the tanaga features beautiful, rhythmic, interlocking rhymes. It really just goes to show how different cultures mathematically structure their sounds to create completely distinct art forms. As the Philippines moved into the 20th century, a true golden age of literature erupted, led by some absolute giants. We have Severino Reyes, famously known as the father of Tagalog drama, who penned the immortal zarzuela Walang Sugat. Then there's Jose Corazon de Jesus, known by his awesome pen name Huseng Batute, who was crowned the very first king of the Balagastan for his incredible poetic debating skills. And of course, De Gracias a Rosario, revered as the father of the Tagalog short story. These giants took those foundational mechanics of reading and writing we talked about earlier, and they turned them into national treasures. So how do we tie the macro world of these literary legends back to the micro world of early language development? Well, we look to Gordon Wells' functions of communication. Whether it's a baby crying out, a reader practicing metacognition, a Japanese samurai writing a haiku, or Severino Reyes writing a Tagalog drama, it really all boils down to these fundamental human acts. We use language to control behaviors, to share our deepest feelings, to get factual info, to ritualize our social interactions, and ultimately to imagine and create entirely new worlds. Which brings us to our final thought. You've seen the mechanics. You've seen the history. Language is a tool that evolves with us, starting from a baby's first babbles and culminating in the grandest epics of our ancestors. And the truly incredible thing is, this evolution isn't over. It's literally happening right now in your own brain. So my question for you is this. From a baby's first babbles to the grandest epics of our ancestors, how will you use your communication acts today to shape tomorrow's literature? Keep learning, keep reading, and definitely keep sharing your voice. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today. I will catch you next time.